Hello guys, today we will be talking about what if Naruto was betrayed by his family part 4. If you enjoy this video please like and subscribe. Now let's begin. Three short months after Tsunade's death and whispers of her disappearance arose. The rumors spread from her taking extended vacation out of the village to assassination, and Konoha was covering it up. Many citizens visited the Senju estate only to be turned away by teams of Anbu. The presence of the highly skilled ninja only further multiplied the mystery and interest in what happened. Although today would end their wondering with the Hokage making a village-wide announcement. The white and red cloak billowed around Minato as he stood atop the Hokage tower, looking out over the amassed crowds. The courtyard was filled and many more were circled around the walls. Finally satisfied with the numbers, he begun his speech. People of Konoha, I have heard your rumors and concerns around the Senju compound, and with a heavy heart I confirm that Tsunade Senju has been assassinated. Gasps and murmurs arose from the crowd and it became a calamity. Some were shouting for retribution and others were crying for a woman they did not know personally. Raising his hands, Minato quieted the crowd to a low rumble and he continued his prepared cover-up. 3 days ago we had intruders within the village and they successfully caught Tsunade off guard. With continuing investigation we have suspicion that it was those of Iwagakure. At the mention of Iwa it was like a starter gun went off and the crowd erupted into shouts and roars. Seeing his people all for this lie, Minato could easily keep this away from himself and hopefully slight Iwa in the process. Until physical evidence has been uncovered incriminating Iwa we cannot retaliate, but we shall pursue all leads until we find those to blame. Approval from the crowd was heard while many looked more determined to reap their own justice. And Minato had nothing against letting them work harder, but he would have to keep a close eye and make sure nothing could be traced back to Konoha. With the announcement over, Minato left, his cloak swishing in a fanfare to his exit, and returns to his familiar office. Holding his head, the yondaime did feel deep regret and guilt for ending the life of Tsunade. Not only was he the one to end the Senju, he also killed the only love of his sensei. Thinking of Jiraiya, he reread the diagnosis for his father figure and all of the doctors said he was of perfect health, but his mind refused to awaken. Tossing the papers aside, Minato looked back on the time since this supposed Naruto returned and Konoha had significantly declined, Rei refusing to speak to most people, losing a third of the missions to Iwa, the daimyo pulling some funds to cover for the depression that gripped the country, and finally Tsunade's death. It all lead back to Naruto uplifting Earth Country. Tch, I cannot touch Iwa yet, but with the Uchiha funds soon to be donated I will at least be able to cause some problems for them. Running his hand through the shoulder-length blonde hair, the yondaime finished the final touches, forging investigation papers and orchestrating the false assassination. Minato finished the final false document and placed the stack of papers within a file for his secretary to pick up. Feeling tired of the office, the yondaime made his way for the exit. Stepping out of the Hokage tower, Minato felt the sun warm his face and he casually strolled down the market street in his aimless wandering. The Namikaze made his way to the hospital and decided to check on his sensei. Waving off the nurses and doctors who greeted him, finally he had found Jiraiya's guarded room and entered with not more than a nod to the guarding Anbu. A deafening silence met his ears that was only broken by the rhythmic beep of the heart monitor indicating Jiraiya was indeed alive despite him being motionless. Taking up seat next to his sensei, Minato just looked at the face of the man he caused so much pain. Sensei, I know you can't hear me, but I am sorry for what happened. It was not supposed to go that far. I cannot undo what I have done, but I hope that you can pull through and forgive me. As per minute. Soared from the resting 37 to a dangerous 180. Jiraiya's blood pressure equaled the intensity of his. He laid his hand upon the arm of the sage and almost immediately the heart monitor jumped. Quickly the BPM heart rate, blood began to seep from his nose. Minato jerked back and began hammering on the red call button for help. Nurses and doctors flooded the room and began checking the readings. Minato did not see much as two nurses hauled him out of the room despite his status as Hokage, and he knew for the health of Jiraiya to just listen to them. Fear was all Minato felt for his surrogate father. He knew enough that the numbers he saw flashing red were nearing lethal heights. Deciding that waiting around the hospital was too unnerving and Minato could tell that it was already into the evening, home was probably the best place he could go. Minato stepped through the threshold of his estate. He was met with his two remaining children involved in what could be considered the apex point of anger. Rei was hyperventilating in anger, and the beginnings of the pendant's yukai could be seen from the slight blue mist that flowed from her eyes and disappeared into the air. Tiki was standing off with his shoulders squared and expression a cold sneer firmly in place. "You are pitiful, Rei. You shame the Namake's name so much that father removes you from ninja service. Hopefully the Uchiha doesn't realize that until you are wed and no longer dragging the name through the mud. I will never marry that asshole. I would rather go to Iwa." Minato decided to intervene before his daughter got too far along with that idea. "Rei, Tiki, what are you two doing? I know Minato, don't contact me for a while. I have some stuff to do." The Hokage could see that his teacher was torn and dying on the inside. He witnessed his most beloved student end the life of his only love. Regardless of it being a mistake, Jiraiya could feel his heart clenching and stomach churning painfully. Moving slowly away, the white-haired man suddenly fell to his knees and threw up. "Jiraiya, hang on, Anbu, make sure no one enters here. I have to get Jiraiya to the hospital." The elder man felt tears crawl down his face. He had never cried since Tsunade told him to never come around again. Slowly bringing a hand up to feel the salty tears, he drew his fingers back and watched them drip off his fingers. Soon those stray drops were followed by a raging river of more as they soaked the grassy bile-covered ground. Jiraiya could feel his student have an arm around his shoulder shouting something, but it all became a dull white fuzzy noise to his ears. The Sannin senses withdrew themselves one by one. He no longer felt, no longer heard. Looking up around the silent world, things that should make sounds were mute, and the hand upon his shoulder he should feel. Looking back down at the grass, the single blades began to blur, mixing and becoming dimmer. Slowly the world darkened until black consumed him and the Sannin slumped to the grass. Blood dripped from her hairline after delivering the primitive strike. Tsunade was breathing deeply after the short but extremely energy-consuming exchange. "You're gonna have to do better than that to slow me, Minato." Only two Anbu stood while the others lay limp on the cold ground. "See, Tsunade, you are an exceptional ninja. Please reconsider and just start teaching medics. You can have all the students you want differing to you for everything. Take your offer and shove it, you little brat." Minato sighed deeply. "You never make things easy, Tsunade, but you will not escape your responsibility." Pulling loose a scroll from his billowing robes, the yondaime began spraying the entire area in his kunai. Now there was at least one kunai every 2 yards. Tsunade could tell she was in deep shit now, with so many places for Minato to appear at. She could no longer predict areas to strike or block at. With a deep breath, Minato began his instantaneous assault. Appearing behind the Sannin, he brought a kick across the back of her legs, flashing again a strike to her left kidney. Downward elbow to a shoulder, uppercut to her ribs, lastly a straight kick to her chest sent her flying into the broken wall of her home. All these attacks happened each at a fraction of a second. Like an explosion, all her pain receptors activated, shocking Tsunade's system. Blood seeped from her mouth and wounds, and she could feel the blood pooling from a ruptured kidney. Tsunade grimaced, knowing that she would not be able to stand steadily with her leg muscles refusing the command to move. Minato saw her struggling to stand and decided to hit the lesson home that he was stronger and commanded her, with his prized jutsu. The swirling blue energy formed in his hands like a frozen sun. Dashing forward to plunge the chakra ball into her stomach, his movement was stopped by the sturdy double-handed grip of Tsunade herself. Their hands shook and shuddered as they put more strength into the confrontation. Minato had the advantage of being able to push with his body weight. Slowly the Rasengan edged closer to her soft skin. Sparing a glance at her face, Minato saw her face change from the determined focus of keeping his hand away to a victorious smirk. Eyes widened, he saw her push his hand upwards and released her grip. The spinning chakra began digging and twisting, Minato knew ending the jutsu prematurely would cause it to become unstable and lash outward with lethal results. The Hokage watched in slow motion as the orb sank deeper and deeper into the torso of the slug Sannin. Tsunade felt little pain as her body went into shock. Her eyes became unfocused and the vibrations of the jutsu working left her body. The panic of death never reached her, she just watched memory flutter through her mind. Memory little Mizumi twirled through one of the many fields of flowers around Konoha. Tsunade sat on a blanket just watching her bundle of joy picking flowers before crumpling them and tossing them around her like confetti. "Mommy, where is Daddy?" The big curious eyes tuned onto the caught-off-guard Tsunade. "Oh well sweetie, he is a ninja of great power but he always works far from the village and never has time to visit." The pale blonde girl tilted her head slightly as if the new angle would help her understand. "Really? Then I'm gonna become the greatest ninja and make Daddy come home," the little girl declared loudly before snatching a little sandwich from the picnic basket and rushing off into the flowers once more. "Hey you little monster, no eating and running at the same time." Tsunade jumped up from her spot and started chasing her little girl all around before lunging and wrapping her in a protective hug and rolled along the ground. Coming to a stop, Tsunade held Miss Yumi to her chest and she lay on her back. The child filled with energy shot her head up with an intact sandwich in hand. "That was fun mommy, let's do it again," she yelled before taking a big bite of bread. Mustard covered both of her cheeks. "Hold still, what will I ever do with you?" Tsunade wiped the condiment from her child's face and licked the condiment from her thumb. "That's gross." "Ha ha, you're so cute, I love you Miss Yumi," Tsunade said tenderly. "I love you too mommy." Memory and Tsunade felt everything go cold and she slipped into the never-ending darkness. "Miss Yumi," she uttered with her last wispy breath. Minato withdrew his arm. His arm was soaked with the life liquid and his face, hair, clothing was speckled with more blood drops reflecting the light like a morbid version of glitter. Stepping back, he tried to come to grips with what he had just done. Turning his head, he saw Jiraiya standing. "Sensei, I didn't mean to, it was an accident." Jiraiya rubbed his now aching joint and vanished in a swirl of smoke. "I should tell Minato." Minutes later, Jiraiya was explaining to his student that Tsunade was going to transfer her citizenship to another country. "Minato, you can't let her leave. She may not teach someone now but she will, and while Iwa has her strength," she said. What they knew was incomplete. "I see what you are saying Sensei, with Iwa routing all foreign government-related missions to themselves and to have a Sannin desert the place her family built would be like broadcasting to all who know that we are losing the faith of our strongest. A former high-ranking Konoha cannot be left to roam unchecked. Sandame was risking a lot to let her leave. I am not going to make the same mistake. Perhaps we can detain Tsunade for long enough to cool down and change her mind." Stroking his chin lightly, Minato closed his eyes and thought of perhaps enlisting Tsunade to care for some children. Nothing can change a woman like having children depending on you for love and survival. "Okay Sensei, try to seal off Tsunade's strength and we can put her under house lockdown at a local orphanage. Those pleading eyes will do wonders to change her attitude." For the first time in a while, Jiraiya smiled. He could keep his love in the village and he could once again try and woo her. "I gotcha Minato, send some Anbu who can handle the verbal abuse. She will be screaming bloody murder once I shut down her chakra." Giving a large cheesy grin, he went to prepare the sealing tags. Hours later, Jiraiya landed silently at the rear of Tsunade's abode and made his damned hardest to prevent any indication that he was sneaking around. Passing through one of the doors, he found Tsunade hunched over on the couch silently crying. Taking this as a sign from the gods, he prepared the sealing paper, and just before Jiraiya slapped one across her back, he was caught with a backhand courtesy of Tsunade. The blonde Sannin had dropped a picture frame upon her abrupt and hastily thrown punch. "What the fuck are you doing back here?" Before Jiraiya could respond, she spotted the inked paper lying harmlessly on the tatami mats. Snatching the paper up, Tsunade studied the lines briefly before figuring out what she was looking at. "You unbelievable bastard." Now Jiraiya had sported many injuries throughout his life from Tsunade, and almost all of them were just love taps compared to what hell she unleashed. A kick to the ribs smashed Jiraiya through two adjacent walls before rolling to a stop on the roughed-up grass, but the slug woman was not done. The arrogance to even try and seal my chakra. Did you think you could just lock me up because I didn't go along with your plan? It was for your own. Jiraiya was interrupted by a right hook sending him a few inches into the ground. You think you know what was for my own good? Raising her leg, she prepared for a heel drop when she dodged a hail of marked kunai. I am surprised you didn't show up earlier. Minato could have saved your sensei a beating. Standing regally with 4 Anbu flanking him, Minato let his Hokage's robes billow with the slight breeze. Tsunade, as Hokage of this village, I cannot let a security leak such as yourself to leave freely. Security leak? I don't know what you are talking about. I had traversed fire country, nothing has changed since. Crossing his arms, Minato leveled Tsunade with narrowed eyes. With Konoha barely above red, we have every village vying to end us and usurp our position. I am recalling you into service to inspire confidence in both our clients and ninja. Accept this or you will be detained until cooperation is achieved. Pompous little bastard, I will leave one way or another. Cracking his knuckles, Minato pulled 2 of his kunai into a reverse grip. So be it. Like a flash of lightning he appeared near one of the surrounding markers, aiming to quickly end the battle with a swipe across Tsunade's hamstring. Not surprised by the tactics, Tsunade had already turned for a knee to Minato's face. Flashing away, Minato thought of a new plan. Anbu attack to subdue. Immediately the 4 Anbu snapped into action. The first masked ninja came in with a flying kick. Tsunade did a pirouette, kneeing the unlucky man upwards while she came down with an elbow. First one down, 4 to go. Hearing the familiar whizzing of kunai, Tsunade stomped the ground, forcing a man-sized rock to explode upwards, letting the thrown weapons bounce harmlessly off. Kicking the boulder across her once manicured garden left a trail of torn-up earth. Scanning the area, she picked up another ninja coming in low with the danto. The Anbu cut a triangle shape in the air, going for non-lethal cuts. Tsunade watched the sword move gracefully through the air. Leaning her body left and right, the swings passed harmlessly through the air. Finally having enough, Tsunade gripped the ninja's hands mid-swing and jerked the sword wielder forward. With the ninja stumbling forward, Tsunade arched her back and threw a sky-shattering headbutt into the face of the surprised Anbu. Sun blazed hot above Konoha, forcing many to seek shade from the scorching heat. One such individual who bore the temperature was none other than Tsunade. The blonde Sannin hummed a simple tune to herself while she tended to the large Senju gardens. It seems great-grandfather wasn't the only one with a green thumb. And to give evidence to her thoughts, the massive plot of land was lush with green plants and littered with flowers of every color. Tsunade had never once regret leaving the ninja service. She now spent her time gardening alongside talking with Shizune and Rei Namikaze. The stress of teaching was no longer present, and having people no longer depending on her made her feel serene amongst her flowers. But just as suddenly her smile turned sour and fury was clearly etched upon her face. I thought I explained clearly enough what would happen if you came near me again. Jiraiya stepped out from behind one of the green-covered arches. Tsunade, I bring bad news about Naruto. Laughing lightly, Tsunade wiped some of the moisture from her brow. I couldn't care less, Jiraiya. Ninja problems no longer concern me. I am happy not knowing whatever it is you want to discuss. And it involves your strength. Quirking an eyebrow, the woman with ample bosom shifted one hand to her hip. What possibly could you have to say that would dissuade me from pounding you into a body cast? Easy now, princess, you may want to sit down. Not budging, Tsunade wanted the man to spit out whatever he said and leave her in peace. I prefer standing. You have 10 seconds before I start swinging. Okay, it has been reported that several Iwa ninja have been displaying feats of great strength. 9. And they only started showing up around when Sakura had her chakra removed. Tsunade glared harshly at the mention of her ex-student. Once that selfish pink-haired could no longer learn medical techniques, she fucked off, not even stopping by to say hello to her old teacher. Ungrateful little wretch. You just lowered your time to 5 seconds. We believe Naruto had learned something akin to the Yamanaka mind-reading abilities and stole all you taught Sakura and relayed those teachings onto their ninja. Tsunade stopped cracking her knuckles for a moment and thought about the turn of events. With so many ninja successfully using my strength even to a minor degree astonishing, I must commend them on that feat. Now do you see Tsunade? You must become a ninja once more to stop him from spreading your secrets. Jiraiya knocked her from the reverie, clearly thinking she would jump at the chance to prevent her knowledge to be spread. I could care less, Jiraiya. Tsunade could visualize the dedication those Iwa ninja portrayed. Being able to use her super strength for combat after only months was incredible. It took Sakura a year before she could crack wood with the lightest of swings. Jiraiya's eyes were the relative size of a tarsier caught by surprise. You're not mad that Naruto stole your secrets and spread them around Iwa for his own gain? Tsunade quirked a smile. Why would I be angry? Not only did my abilities become famous, they are now a common thing. She let a few chuckles go. So many in Iwa picked up the use so quickly, given they were third-hand taught and not even complete. I am probably more well known there than your student. The Toad Sage stared at Tsunade like she had just swallowed one of her slug summons. You can't be serious, Tsunade. Your life's work was stolen from you. How can you not be angry? Because if I croaked here and now, my everything would die with me. Sakura could not pass on the knowledge, and Shizune was never interested in learning the more combative side of medicine. At least I am famous throughout Iwa for something now common among the ninja like kunai. Jiraiya felt a severe anger twitch threatening to start on his eyebrow. Then release your techniques here in Konoha, teach a few more people to fight like you do. I already swore off teaching Jiraiya, so no. Tsunade flippantly waved him off and began walking away to have some lunch. Quickly the white-capped Sannin reached out and grabbed a hold of Tsunade's shoulder. As a citizen of Fire Country, you should do it for the betterment of our nation. Grasping the offending hand, Tsunade twisted Jiraiya into a kneeling position. A citizen of Fire Country, eh? A smirk played across her face. Then I can easily arrange to change that. Kicking her annoyance away, the slug woman headed to begin her packing. Naruto stopped laughing and sneered at her. There is no stopping this. Everything that has happened was because I forced it. His arms swung out to indicate everything around them. Your mission's no longer as plentiful, the Daimyo taking your funding, it was all my plan. This wretched place felt a minor degree to what I felt while human, but my plan does not stop with simply killing you. Naruto took his eyes off Kushina and took in the beautiful sights and smells of the battlefield. Once I have leveled this village, I will erase the very history of Konoha. No longer will people remember the past Hokage or the achievements garnered. The true punishment for what was done to me will be that everything that is here will cease to exist to the minds of every man, woman and child. Finished his rant, Naruto turned back to Kushina to see her holding the final hand seal for summoning. Kuchios, Kamakenryu. Naruto's eyes widened at his arrogance for thinking himself untouchable. The skies darkened and clouds swirled swiftly before parting to the black chains that extended to the earth. Who dares summon me? The divine voice thundered across the land while the being descended from the atmosphere and the god landed next to Kushina. Turning its head, the being took in the Namikaze. It is you again. What pitiful reason have you called me foe? The man stopped mid-sentence when he saw Naruto. Kushina bowed to the summoned god. Kami, the Kyuubi has returned. I ask that you remove it from this realm forever. The deity gave the most unholy smirk. So it seems, I will do this. The god brushed the shoulder-length raven hair away from his face, revealing a short beard and sinister eyes that gave off smoke. Before the Kami could move, Naruto spoke. You are no god. I can feel the Fallen's power flowing through you, calling for me to slit your throat and take your blood. The now revealed demon laughed loudly. So even with the mind of a human, a demon can feel my hunger pushing them. The mysterious demon continued to laugh. Now come, become part of me once more so I may have my more of true powers restored. Naruto felt his body betray itself as it willingly released the power he had gathered. Naruto's mind raced to figure out how this was happening. Who is this demon? I have no recollection of this from any memories I absorbed. His hunger. True powers. Naruto remembered Kyomi's brief history of how the demons came to be. All demons are drawn to fight and consume the blood of their brethren to become the deity once more. Many have overcome the urges to consume solely for the purpose of reforming the god. Eyes widening, this demon was the true god, he is the broken one. Naruto saw Kyomi appear with Rei and she too fell to her knees and her power was siphoned away. The broken one laughed louder after Kyomi's power began to flow into him as well. Ha ha, you have gathered so much in this short time. The god closed its eyes as it reveled in the restoration. Suddenly the god opened his eyes in fear. I must hide. The drain on the demons stopped and the fallen sneered at them. You are lucky I am not yet strong enough to fight another god, or I would finish this, but they cannot know I am reformed. A void portal opened behind him and he vanished. The demon duo collapsed, feeling significantly weaker. Naruto eyed the ninja appearing to mount an offensive. Pushing himself, Naruto took hold of both women and fled with a shunshin. As Tiki was recoiling in pain, the demoness called to Rei. Go gather the things you want, I will be done here soon. Nodding her head in acceptance, Rei hiked her dress up and raced inside, grabbing everything of value to her. Tiki ripped the torn clothing from his body and touched the bleeding wounds. Tiki's body was slim and toned, nothing like the cut and muscular godlike body Naruto possessed, but you could tell this man did not laze around. Tiki flexed his muscles and shook himself of his stupor. You caught me unaware, but that will be your only chance. Opening his hands, he hoped to take this woman alive since she was apparently important to the demon. The immortal and human kicked off, meeting in a flurry of slashes and thrusts. Tiki aimed a strike to her shoulder and Kyomi shoved the offending hand away from her body and awarded the man with 2 more sets of wounds on his ribs to match his chest. The fight continued for a few minutes, with Tiki attacking while the demoness simply slapped the attacks away and gave him painful but purposefully glancing strikes. The skies darkened and it looked to start raining any moment. Both separated for a moment to recover and Kyomi landed with grace and a huff of air, while Tiki stumbled and felt each of the battle wounds screaming out in searing hot pain. Momentarily distracted by pain, Tiki never saw the immortal in his face until he looked into the blood-red eyes staring at him. Tiki couldn't move until it was too late and Kyomi's red-stained claws ripped down the right side of his face, leaving 4 deep wounds. Her claws caught his eye and blood erupted from the optic organ in a shower of gore. Tiki placed both hands over his mutilated eye socket and hunched over in agony. Kyomi took full advantage and Spartan kicked him across the lawn. His cries of pain were heard from afar by the volume, and it was only matched by the maniacal laughter of Kyomi as she was in a full-blown fit. You may have that as a parting gift to remember me by. It was at this time Rei exited the estate to see her brother rolling on the ground in pain, and his shouts caused her ears to ache. Rei tried to ascertain the events, but Kyomi blocked her sight. Let's go, Rei, I am sure Naruto would like to know you're safe. Rei leaned to see her screaming brother, but the demoness had already grabbed hold and the shunshin was underway. Back with Naruto, the anthropomorphic demon had just bisected a woman as she ran when an Anbu appeared and sped through a chain of signs and a cry of Katen. Gory Yuka, the flaming dragon, erupted from the ninja's mouth and barreled towards Naruto. The transformed demon pulled a wing across his body, covering himself as the flames washed over and burned everything. The Anbu held the flames going for a few seconds until he relented, letting the smoke clear. Amongst the soot, Naruto stood unharmed. My turn, Futon. Tsubasakiri, the wind formed over his wings and took shot off towards the ninja. Hardly surprising, the Anbu jumped and spun horizontally as the jutsu sped by, only nicking his arms and clothing. Landing in a crouch, the Anbu saw Naruto turn and head towards the fleeing Hokage. Taking advantage of having his back, the Anbu started another ninjutsu. Taking a breath to call out the technique, the masked ninja heard low screeching behind him. Turning to face the noise, he was met with the dodge jutsu slicing his body into quarters. Naruto watched as his mother and a chonin were attempting to run with Minato hanging limply from their shoulders. Thrusting his hand out, Naruto expelled a burst of air and abruptly the aiding chonin's chest exploded and he fell to the ground. Kushina was pulled down by the sudden weight in her husband's body and saw the ninja fall face first into the bloodied grass. Turning her head, she saw the Kyuubi nearing. Whispering and lightly slapping Minato, she attempted to revive him enough to ape, but it was fruitless. He did not rouse. Naruto stopped short of his target as he watched Kushina set the yondaime down and took a defensive stance in front of the downed man. Attacking Konoha was a big mistake. Kyuubi, you will go no further. What is with the hostility, dear mother? No, hi son, how has it been? I can see manners were not taught to the wife of Hokage. The sarcasm rang clearly through the greeting. Would you kindly step aside and allow me to continue my work? I have no interest in killing you, Kushina. The redhead narrowed her eyes. You have no intention of letting me leave, even if I let you pass. You caught on to my lie. I must work on that, ha ha ha. I will stop you here and now, Kyuubi, just as we did 20 years ago. You will watch over her for the next 2 months until her wedding day. Any hint of Yukai will restrain her with force. We cannot have her doing this again. Understood, sir. Nodding his head in gratitude, Minato swept his sweaty hair away from his eyes as the Anbu took his daughter to be healed. Once they left, the gathered crowd erupted into cheers and whoops of praise for his incredible skills. Feeling a smile come across his face, Minato could definitely use this moral booster to the people. Raising his arms to the crowd, their volume increased to a deafening roar. Finally, end flashback. Ha ha ha. Wipe that look off your face, dear daddy. How could you forget me? You worked so hard to memorize my dying moments. Naruto's teen form morphed back into his present body and he blasted his enemy away with a thunderous punch. Minato tumbled ass overhead across the dirt, landing in a crumpled heap at the feet of the reception. Kushina broke through the crowd, kneeling next to her downed husband, and brushed the dirt from his face and gave him a couple light slaps to wake him up. Honey, you have to wake up, Ray might be in danger. Slowly his eyes focused on the heavenly face of his wife and her words rung true through his head. Arg, Minato grunted from the dull pain of pushing himself up. Facing the grinning Naruto, Minato threw a hand to his side and the signature humming chakra ball appeared instantly. You come at the greatest known Baiju with your pathetic jutsu? Swinging it behind himself, Naruto prepared to face Minato head-on. You seem pretty determined, come and I will destroy everything you care for. Minato was definitely baited and his battle cry rang out as he charged. Coming within an arm's reach, Naruto's grin turned into a full-blown smile. The mighty Rasengan disappeared from the hands of its creator and came to life within Naruto's. Catching the outstretched hand, Naruto held the yondaime still and plunged the spiraling ball into his stomach. Lifted from the force, Minato's body could not escape as Naruto held him against the jutsu. Finally releasing the chakra, Minato slumped to the ground, having felt like his organs had rearranged themselves. Naruto lifted the limp man to look him eye to eye. You feel but a sliver of what I will unleash upon you in this village. Pray to whatever god you worship that you die quickly. Throwing the unconscious Hokage back at his mother, Naruto took in the assembled people and his voice boomed out. Scum of Konoha, I am Naruto Meizoku. You may remember me as Naruto Uzumaki. Today is the day you all will feel my anger and hatred. Run, scream, beg. It will do you no good. I will hunt down each and every one of you. Today is the day you will all perish. Naruto's body instantly shifted to his gargoyle-like form and he charged headlong into the crowd, starting the bloodshed with a spray of life liquid as he ripped a man limb from limb. Rei watched with green face as her brother ripped into those gathered for her wedding, looking to the demon as she saw Kyomi transfixed with an excited grin as she watched Naruto tear each and every person down with ruthless efficiency. Speaking up, Rei caught the attention of her brother Love. Kyomi, can you take me home to get changed? Kyomi tore her gaze from the beautiful sight of blood and truly took in the radiant Namikaze. Why would you want to change at all, dear? This is your wedding day, you deserve to look so pretty. The teasing grin the crimson-haired immortal wore implied that this would be an event she would never be allowed to forget. Before Rei could retort, Kyomi continued, where is your house? The young girl pointed to the ivory-white building seen just barely above the rooftops. The Eternal Woman nodded and took hold of Rei's arm and vanished in a shunshin. Racing through the village, Kyomi arrived to the house in seconds and dropped out of the jutsu with a huge grin. These human jutsu are so useful. Rei turned to run inside, but it seemed they had a tag along. Tiki appeared with his Jonin uniform on and a superior scowl on his face. Rei, what are you doing? The Giri turned to answer. I am changing to leave with Naruto. Tiki's eyes narrowed as he stared at his traitorous sister. Then you will be detained and held for punishment until Kyuubi is defeated. Charging in, Tiki attacked sister. Before striking, his hands were stopped with these by Kyomi, appearing with a bored look. I am sorry, but Naruto and I have taken a liking to his baby sister, so you will have to go through me. Tiki leapt away to appraise this woman. So you are with the demon. Then you will fall beneath the Namikaze just as Kyuubi did once before. Kyomi's demeanor changed into an angry sneer. Ah yes, I owe Minato for that, but you will be a good start. Her dainty nails sharpened and she curled her hands into a tiger's claw. Before Tiki could realize what had happened, Kyomi appeared before him and swiped her hand across his chest, tearing his clothes into ribbons and leaving 4 searing bloody trails down his torso. Minato stepped in her path and was ready to subdue his own little girl. You will stand down, Ray, before I am forced to use drastic measures. By now a crowd had gathered to watch the azure fire-wreathed woman stand off against their Hokage. Ray let her red iris jump from her father to the Anbu. Minato, hearing no response forthcoming, a flick of his wrist directed the Makotan Anbu to circle around and take his son to safety. The Zoto demon darted for the Anbu, dashing past her, but once again Minato intercepted her with an uppercut and forced her back with a Rasengan to her abdomen. Ray spread her wings and abruptly her flight stopped and landed on her clawed feet. This has nothing to do with you, Dad, just get out of the way and I will finish Ki's lesson for the day. I told you already to stand down and you disobeyed a direct order from your Hokage. You're not my Hokage, remember, Dad? I am not even a ninja, you had that taken from me. Her mouth widened as a torrent of flames burst forth. Rolling away, Minato decided he couldn't allow her to spew of any more of those kind of attacks lest she injure one of bystanders. Pushing off, the yondaime met her with a fist only to hit the ethereal wings blocking the strike. Ray blasted her father back and the Yukai swirled angrily around her. All I wanted was to be a ninja and you took it away from me, all you do is take. Rounding up for another burst of flame, the young Namikaze tilted her head back for more momentum behind them. Once again the flames flew, only to be stopped as Minato has once again zipped close enough and smashed her jaw shut with a palm strike. The flames were unbitten by the new obstruction and spilled through the teeth in thin searing beams. The redhead backhanded her father with the strength of Tsunade, sending him far enough away and leaving his head ringing. You take away Naruto's childhood and you took away his life. You are not a man, you are a monster. Ray's words echoed in his mind, slowly enraging him. Monster. You call me a monster? Standing up, Minato brushed his stray hair aside, now fully displaying his countenance screwed in anger. You willfully use the chakra of the demon, you attack your brother, you threaten to desert the village for Iwa, and I am the monster? At this he drew his scroll of marked kunai. You want covering the ground in marked metal. Ray raised her wings, letting them bounce harmlessly off the Yukai. Monster, then I will show you a monster. And the kunai rained down. The final kunai settled on the earth and it was eerily calm. The crowd held their breath. The Anbu sped away with Tiki and the lull of fighting. Across the grounds only the flickering and hissing of Yukai was heard. Staring dead into his daughter's red eyes, Minato vanished. Ray was launched sideways and her father stood in her place with his foot extended from a kick. Mid-flight she was met with a downwards punch into the dirt. Swinging her claws out, Ray hoped to catch Minato before he could vanish one more, but she was too late and he was already a distance away. Growling deep within her throat, Ray stood tall, having the Yukai protect her. How did hydration work again? I got it. Predictably, Minato disappeared once again. Before connecting with his attack, Minato was clotheslined and sent into the dirt, clutching his closing windpipe. Ray raised her clawed foot to stomp her father, but he rolled and vanished once more. You taught me how your hydration works, I know how to stop you. Minato knelt, rubbing his aching trachea. I will switch it up. The yellow flash started again. Ray watched the yellow after image to find her father's trajectory, knowing that once he uses the jutsu he must reach the marker before being able to start it again and change direction. Ray saw the flash being his attack and she moved to anticipate it. Putting a fist through where his chest should have been, she met air and received a Rasengan to the back for her effort. Face first in the ground, Ray did not receive respite as Minato kept charging his spiraling jutsu in both hands. Blow after blow, the yondaime did not stop his assault until her cloak began to thin. Leaping back to admire his work, Minato waited for his daughter to get up. Ray pushed herself to her knees and coughed up some blood. Standing, she faced her father with one demonic red eye and the other royal purple she inherited from her mother. The yukai cloak looked shredded and there were patches missing, half her face was exposed giving the impression of a ghostly mirror. Rei could feel the necklace's agony trying to maintain the cloak to keep its carrier alive, but the intensity she used drained it quickly and the barrage she took only hastened the fact. Minato snapped his fingers and the Tora Anbu surfaced from the ground and restrained her with the Makitan poles. The last of the cloak left her and she felt her eyes closing. Her struggle was in vain as she surrendered to unconsciousness. Tiki turned his gaze to his progenitor. Rei was trying to sneak out. I merely stopped her and was accosting her for trying to do so. Is this true, Rei? Rei gripped her fists tightly trying to suppress the warm embrace of the yukai fueling her strength. I was going to meet some friends when this asshole here stops and insults me. Tiki scoffed at his sister. It is hardly an insult when it's the truth. Rei lunged at him. Shut up. Easily avoiding his out-of-practice sister with a swat of his hand, he had her on the ground and Tiki quickly twisted and armed to keep her still. See, shameful as always. I feel sorry for the Uchiha, he will spend the rest of his life having to put up with you. Rei's lips stretched into a snarl. Get off. Tiki only laughed. Get off, now. Blue yukai exploded from her body throwing her hapless brother into the adjacent wall. Rei stood up wreathed in the rich yukai of her brother and stared with the same red eyes. Come on Ki, stand up, you wanted to trade verbal blows. I rather hit you for real. Tiki grabbed his chest and he breathed deeply after the wind was knocked from him. No witty insult. The young Namikaze grinned and the yukai mimicked it with a sinister rendition. What has happened? By now you would have said something. Do I scare you, brother? Rei had the chakra cloak in full, the ethereal wings and claws at her command. She felt like she could take on everything and win. Tiki looked to his father and saw him snap into action. Minato landed between his children and stared the now taller Rei down. Stand down, Rei, the use of that yukai is forbidden. What, Tiki was just asking to fight, now I am all pumped up and you try to stop us now. Lightly smacking her father out of her way, she marched towards her brother. I am not done with him yet. Minato landed pivoting on the ball of his foot and shot off to stop his incredibly strong daughter. This is your last warning, Rei. Dispel the chakra and go to your room. I thought implied not to get in my way. Rei reached out with the blue chakra claws and gripped her father. You can wait until Ki apologizes. Rei raised Minato above her head and threw him into the wall behind her more forcefully to get her point across. Tiki stared wide-eyed as his sister stomped the short distance slowly as if to prolong the fear he felt. Rei let out a blue claw and Tiki quickly rolled from its path. The claw smashed into the wall and tore deep enough to be excruciatingly painful if it were to hit. Rei was barely fazed that she missed and simply dragged the yukai through the wall, leaving a gaping trench in it. Tiki jumped from his spot towards the exit. He nearly made it until the yukai streaked through where his chest should have been. Changing direction, he didn't get to move far until his sister and her claws wrapped around his chest. Lifting him from the ground, Rei smirked at her brother's expression. It was like death stared into his soul as she pressed him against the wall. Rei started forcing his chest to compress against the wall and the air was forced from his lungs. Tiki started wheezing, gasping for breath that couldn't enter. What did you say, Tiki? A devilish grin was spread across her face. She leaned in closer to hear the words was trying to form. I can't quite hear you, you're gonna have to speak up. At the apex of her voice she pushed her brother right through the wall and Tiki bounced across the grassy yard, rolling to a stop. Rei stepped out of the hole, making it larger as she forced her wings through. You said I was the shame of the Namikaze, correct? Kicking him further across the yard. If I shamed the clan with my weakness, then what does that make you, huh? Rei stepped to his body and rolled him onto her foot. Flicking him upward, she let a shattering punch propel him into a tree. Tiki lay curled at the base of the tree, feeling the numerous broken bones he received from her attacks. Where is the bravado now that you can't win? Speak the fuck up. Before Rei could continue, her brother's beating Minato arrived with his cat-masked Anbu. Tora restrained her. Immediately wooden totem poles burst from the ground encircling her. Pieces of the yukai cloak began to disappear within the wood, leaving Rei's pale flesh behind. No, I am not done yet. He needs to learn you don't fuck with a demon. The output of yukai doubled, bursting the poles into splinters as it reformed around her body. Turning her red eyes to the Anbu that could stop her, she sped towards him, fist cocked ready to rattle his brain. Naruto knelt and whispered hotly into her ear. Fu. She felt the breath and she turned towards the voice and saw nothing. Again Fu. The girl's eyes darted all around trying to find the source. Fu. This time she turned her head and came eye to eye with the crimson pools boring into her soul. Scurrying backwards she tried to make space between them, but it did no good as she was shoved forward by Kyomi. Getting traction she turned again only to face Ray in her path. Looking, Fu saw now Mei blocked the final route. She was surrounded. Flashback. And what do you want from me? Fu screamed. Fu of the Nanabi, we have come for you. His voice was a rumbling echo that reverberated through the area. The Jinchuriki grabbed her head as the green Baiju chakra poured from her skin. Soon she was wreathed in it, wings and all. She swung her arm, sending the extended appendages all around her, forcing Mei and Ray to jump to escape. Naruto and Kyomi instead grabbed hold of the Yukai and began siphoning what they could. Watching them stop the chakra in its tracks, she changed tactics. Fluttering her wings, she took off into the leaves, hoping to lose them in the foliage and hide. Fu slowed her speed, no longer hearing anyone, and she held her back against a branch, taking deep breaths, holding her racing heart. She did not get much respite when she heard wood splintering, and once she had pinpointed its direction it was too late. Crunch. Naruto barreled through the branches, slamming his shoulder into her stomach, driving her through the tree limb and 2 more below. Fu lay still as her chakra fluctuated, trying to maintain cohesion but was failing. Naruto pulled himself off the unconscious young lady and signaled for the others to join him. Ray appeared first and she gasped at the girl's rough shape. She had many splinters embedded around her ribs and assumed more were in her lower back. Mei landed next and she too took notice of the girl's injuries. Naruto, I don't think you needed to do so much damage to the poor girl. Mei started to channel her chakra to heal the young woman, but Naruto pushed her back. What was that for? She questioned. Naruto never took his eyes off the downed lady. She is not done yet, the Nanabi will not allow it. To prove his point, green Yukai exploded from her, forcing all the splinters out, and Fu's body rose from the ground like a puppet. Her eyes now poured green flames reaching for the sky, and her form now looked like a miniature of the Baiju itself. Fu's head swiveled, taking in her surroundings, and she focused on Naruto intently. Giving off a deadly screech, sending all the birds flying and everyone within earshot to hold their ears. Like a bullet she shot off scythe-like limbs, leading the charge. Meeting her halfway, the Baiju's blades raked along Naruto's wings, leaving his Yukai to sew itself together, pushing her off. Naruto threw the girl into Kiyomi's waiting claws. Kyomi thrust her hand out, punching a hole through the Yukai cloak and leaving a gaping wound in the woman's chest. She screamed in pain, but it was shrugged off as the Yukai swirled and filled it with new flesh. Fu's anger only rose with the assault, and the Yukai began to solidify around the girl. The iron-like carapace formed, which extended, forming over her shoulders, and a large rhinoceros beetle horn began to grow from her head. Naruto did not give her much respite. He grabbed hold from behind, his large legs wrapped around her midsection and his hands pulling the horn, forcing her head upwards. Yotan, Shakuguri and Futon, Shinkajiakume and Ray fired their respective jutsu into the unprotected torso of the Jinchuriki. Naruto released the girl, leaving her unbalanced and unable to dodge the successive techniques to her body. The lava burst as it impacted, covering her body in the molten rock, and was quickly hardened by the cooling spheres of wind. The pile of lava stone radiated the heat still churning beneath the cooled surface. Briefly the girls feared they had killed the poor girl as they landed next to a deep-breathing Naruto. A loud rumble echoed out and the stone cocoon exploded in chunks of rock and lava. Naruto brought his wings across the ladies, the rocks bouncing a harmless love off while the molten drops ran off, leaving a burning at rails in the flesh, cauterizing the wounds. Within the hospital, Tiki sat with the stinging scars in the wake of his defeat. The medics had tried to save the eye, but it was for naught. It had been damaged beyond repair. Ocular muscles had been torn, the retina detached, even the orbital socket had 3 claw marks through it, showing just how strong the nails of the woman had been. He had been offered transplants, but he had declined in favor of keeping it as a reminder of his hatred for the Kyuubi and the bitch. Tentatively he reached up his hand and ran his fingers along the raised scars, feeling the searing pain still left after the healers were done. Fuck, it stings. Tiki whipped his hand from the wound, frustrated with his current situation. Picking up some gauze to cover the still sensitive skin, Tiki began looking like a blonde Kakashi. He had no one to report to at the moment, so he would wait for his father to summon him. Making himself comfortable, he began planning how he would train to not suffer such a humiliating loss again. Within a matter of weeks, the tale of Konoha being attacked directly by one man and kidnapping the only daughter of the Hokage on the day of her wedding, no less. The sensationalized story spread like wildfire from schools to brothels. Everyone heard, and the thing on everyone's mind: who was the god amongst men who could pull off such a feat? The man in question was now standing menacingly, staring the Nanabi Jinchuriki down. Flashback: setting down near the village of Taki, Naruto led his sensory gills to feel all and map out the village. Finding a good spot to appear and hide, he flickered in with his trio. Within the leaves of the great tree surrounding them, they prepared by Naruto and Kyomi, warping the tree to provide more cover. "Naruto, how are you going to get the Nanabi from the girl?" Ray inquired. "I will kill her and hopefully consume it before it can fully escape from the host," Naruto responded easily. Ray was taken back by how easily he would kill a girl he had no connection to. "Do you have to kill a Foo?" Ray checked the dossier to find her name. Naruto paused for a moment. "There are other ways, but they are far more hassle than catching her off guard before she can fight." His tone conveyed a feeling of annoyance. Ray picked up on his irritation at her wanting him to keep the girl alive. Okay. She was not that confident in her personal standing with Naruto to try and change his mind. The subject though was picked up by Mei. "Maybe we could keep the girl alive, no need to cause more casualties. The girl didn't do anything wrong, right?" Mei gave a pleading look to Kyomi to back up a fellow woman. Sighing, Kyomi decided to help out their cause. "They do have a point, Naruto. This Foo girl is innocent. We could just siphon the Baiju out and let her be on her way." The demon sighed, seeing that even his own mate wanted this. "I suppose if this is what you want, then I can arrange to keep the girl alive during the process." Kyomi smiled brightly and gave him a hug. Eyeing the two standing awkwardly, she pulled them both in, allowing Naruto's strong arms to wrap around them all. And so the plan began. He would press the girl until their meeting, where she would be so high-strung the tailed beast's power would surface almost instantly. The first step was putting the girl on edge, such as influencing the branches to sway, throwing off her footing every time she landed. The second was finding her pets. With Naruto and Kyomi's sensory prowess, they found every nook and cranny of where she nested insects charged with Baiju energy. Every little bug found, they would drain the Yukai and remove it from the large chakra net the Jinchuriki had formed. The final step was to prevent the girl from having any sort of meaningful rest. The sleep deprivation was achieved with glimpses of their clothing when she would glance around. A genjutsu siphoning off her own chakra produced whispers on the wind calling out for her, and if she still slept, Naruto would jostle her slumbering body, bringing her from the much-needed rest. This carried on for the last week, and it showed in the Jinchuriki's appearance. Her eyes had dark bags, and the once pristine combed mint green hair was now unkempt and knotted. Fu looked every part the zombie she felt like. Her eyes were heavy but could not sleep, fearing the whispers and whatever was waking her undetected. "What is going on? I can hear and catch glimpses of them everywhere. What do they want?" Fu was entering hysteria, and every shadow she began to fear. She crouched down and clutched her head to her knees, trying to drown out the voices. Naruto and the trio watched the young Jinchuriki break down, crying hysterically. Ray felt truly terrible for doing this to such a sweet girl, but she would survive the mental torture, and it was better than the alternative. It seems she has reached her breaking point. Now would be the best time to draw it out. "Remember the plan." Naruto seemed to float down to a shadowed branch, and the girls took their positions. Taking control of the parasitic genjutsu, Naruto began raising the voices from mere whispers to skull-splintering screams. Fu felt pain at the volume until all at once everything went silent, and to Fu now the silence was even more terrifying than the whispers. "Well, come on, tell us." Everyone was paying rapt attention to his next words. "I will become just as strong as the god." "And how will you do that, love?" Kyomi piped in. Opening his mouth to respond, instead he snapped it shut. It would be easier to show you. Onoki, do you have any criminals to spare? The old man nodded, indicating a yes. I had my assistant work through the papers to sentence 4 death row inmates into your care. Snapping his fingers, the door opened and 4 rugged, angry-looking men were knelt at Naruto's feet. Now pay close attention and you will see. Raising his hands, he placed them upon 2 of the men and removed all traces of chakra. The men slumped to the floor exhausted. Shifting, he brought his hands inches from the next victims, and slowly they watched as blue chakra rose from the skin, flowing into his palm. They too fell to the floor. No one understood the significance of either draining, but they didn't have to wait long before Naruto began his explanation. I will do exactly as the god did. I will draw the Yukai from something a few meters away. Once I perfect it, I can compete with the god by taking from his power as he takes from me. Clarity dawned on all those present. That's brilliant, I could just kiss you. And she did, placing both hands on his cheeks and drew a deep kiss from his lips. Kyomi ignored the twinge of jealousy she saw cross Mei's face and raised slight embarrassment. The prisoners were removed and Naruto began plotting his next course of action. We will need to absorb the remaining demons in this realm to take Konoha. Onoki, do you know where I would be able to find the nearest demon container? Stroking his chin, the Tsuchikage thought over his reconnaissance reports. There is actually one in Tiki, the 7 Tails, if I remember correctly. Young girl with teal hair, I will have someone bring you a dossier on the Jinchuriki. Then we have a new destination. Turning to his sister, Naruto asked if she wanted to come, not bothering to ask his other 2 companions, knowing they were on board. Back in Konoha, people were in a frenzy. The wedding of the century was crashed and the Yondaime was defeated. The whole section around the gardens was closed off and the medical teams began slowly sifting through the gore and viscera, tallying up the dead and wounded. The numbers grew as the bodies were identified and bagged. Now we find Minato being patched up by the best medics available. Watch where you're poking. The medic touched a bruised rib and began repairing the internal damage. Slowly the pain eased and he moved, signaling the attendant to wrap his torso in gauze. Finishing the wrappings, the ninja left and Kushina entered before the door could close. Minato, how are you? Shifting his muscles, her could feel the dull pains. He grimaced at his defeat by the Kyuubi. I am mostly fine, Kushina. What happened? After you fell unconscious, Naruto continued his rampage. It was horrifying to see the people we knew being torn apart before my eyes. The Uzumaki closed her eyes briefly to banish the memories of that morning. He was incredibly strong. He warded off jutsu with just a movement of his wings or absorbed the rest. I was terrified watching him so easily strike everyone down. Minato could feel the blood behind his eyebrows throb painfully. Then what stopped his advances? I summoned the god to stop the Kyuubi again. Minato's eyes widened quickly and he took a hold of her arm. Who did you sacrifice, Kushina? His voice was sharp as he stared into her eyes. And no one. The god saw the Kyuubi and said he would do it without one. Breathing a sigh of relief, Minato moved off the bed, grabbing his torn cloak from the rack and swung it around his shoulders. Good, the people cannot know of what the god usually wants. Holding the door open, he beckoned Kushina out with him. Let's find Kakashi, he can give me a report. Shuffling out of the room with Kushina hot on his heels, he looked for his student. The demonic duo now tucked into their royal purple bed with Mei, Rei, and the Tsuchikage standing watch over the pair. The silence broken by the gruff voice of the elderly man. What happened? With Naruto's strength there should have been no complications. Mei took loose strands of hair from the faces of both of the bedridden demons. From what Naruto told me, Kushina summoned the horrible god that tied their souls, which was also the broken. Grunting in acknowledgement, Onoki finally turned to the white ball gown garbed Namikaze. Turning from the bed, Onoki finally took a good look at the new arrival. Rei stood stock still with her once pristine snow-white dress dirtied and the neat bun of hair left disheveled and comping apart. Closing his eyes in frustration, he took the hand of the Namikaze girl. Come girl, you must be wanting to get out of that dress. I will take you to get something to change into. Rei put up a weak resistance. Oh, no, it's okay, Kyomi has my belongings from Konoha, I can get some clothes from my scroll. The aged leader smiled grandfatherly at her. It seems Kyomi is in no condition to give you anything. You will shop in the finest of stores Iwagakure has to offer. The people will gladly give you anything to repay the debt we owe to your brother." That made the girl stumble. "My brother, that is the first time I have heard anyone else relate him to myself." Rei cracked a smile at Onoki referring Naruto as her brother. Finally relenting, she accepted the wrinkled hand leading her into the bright sun. The contrast of aged pair walked the herringbone roadways of Iwagakure seeking the nicest of shopping. As they moved about, the crowd parted easily for them, while many gave great smiles and greeted the Hokage with cheery hellos and good days. Rei watched all the people with fascination. The residents were so happy and helpful, almost a complete opposite of Konoha. Before the depression there was no sense of friendship with anyone who passed. Almost no one waved or smiled as they milled about their days, and the situation got worse once Fire Country cut expenditures, but here in Iwa everyone shook hands, smiled, and generally cared. Onoki saw the Namikaze watching the people with fascination and broke her marveling. "Incredible, is it not?" Rei gave Onoki a confused look. "Just 2 short years ago my people had very little in the way of happiness, trudging through these streets with lost looks. Now they move with a spring in their steps and smiles on their faces, all because of those 3 and their incredible powers." Rei was given the best quality of clothes for free from any store she visited. Her choices were minimalistic, trying not to take advantage of the goodwill towards her. Settling on spandex ankle-length pants with matching shirt, a standard Iwagakure flak jacket left unzipped, simple open-toed sandals. The girl's problems temporarily forgotten amidst her foreign shopping adventure, the joy around her seeped into her, bringing out smiles. Rei laughed as her old escort told her stories of the hijinks her brother unknowingly found himself in, one being the accidental obliteration of the female hot spring walls when Naruto tested his improved air bullet jutsu. Throughout the tale she found herself more entranced with Naruto after his fateful execution 5 years earlier, and resolved to find out more and spend time with him. Reaching the home after her 3-hour-long spree, she found Naruto was already up and conversing with Kyomi. "I know, but we cannot even hide knowing the god has a form. Eventually he will grow stronger and find every last one of us." The blonde demon was stony-faced as he persuaded his mate to see his side. "Then what can we do?" The red-haired demoness had a worried look on her face. Naruto closed his eyes, thinking on everything he knew, every memory and angle. The memories flew past him, both his own and all he absorbed, like an old-school flame slideshow. Finally everything stopped on his brush with assimilation earlier, and he visualized himself standing third person from him, as if watching the god with a deranged smile forcefully drew his strength away. Pausing, replaying, he went over those few seconds of helplessness thousands of times in the course of the moments outside. Finally opening his eyes, he had a small smile. "I have an idea." The escaping trio dropped out of the Shunshin near the borders of Hinokuni and Kusa. Naruto released them and promptly fell face in the dirt. Kyomi too joined shortly after. "Naruto, Kyomi." The young Namikaze rolled and began checking their bodies for injuries. Not finding any, she pulled them into the shade of a tree. Rei was worried. She did not know how far they were from Konoha, but she had to keep an eye out until they awakened. Hearing the swoosh of leaves rustling, Rei whipped around to see the curvaceous blue battle-dressed Mei with 2 Iwa shinobi. The girl had heard of the barbarians that were Iwa and how they had risen to be the most renowned. Rei wasted no time and pulled 2 kunai out, letting them fly at the vital necks of the ninja. Mei's lips curled upwards at the feisty girl, deftly looping her fingers through holes and twirled them to a stop in her hands. "You must be Rei Namikaze." She felt her muscles tense at the woman identifying her. "How do you know who I am?" Mei handed the caught kunai to her escorts. "How would I not know about the sister of Naruto?" Walking towards the Namikaze, Mei had a friendly smile plastered on her face. "I am Mei Chiromi. I have been with Naruto and Kyomi since Kiri's destruction. Nice to meet you." Hearing that this woman knew her brother and had found them, Rei felt a lot more comfortable. Ms. Jiraiya stuck her hand out as a gesture of greeting, and Rei took the delicate hand in her own. Before Rei could notice, Mei had wrapped a hand around the jewel resting between her breasts. Running her fingers across the yukai gem, it hummed at the residual yukai infused from her time being so close to Naruto. Mei spoke to it quietly. I will need you to rouse Naruto. The gem heard her and went silent. Giving it a quick tug, the string holding to Ray snapped and Mei moved around the Namakes to get at the downed demons and gently wrapped one of his large hands around the brilliant Yukai stone. Naruto took a deep intake of breath and his gills sliced open, flaring briefly before sealing themselves. Naruto opened his eyes, already knowing all within a mile radius. Mei, I am glad you came to meet us here. Handing the jewel back to Ray, she tied the string back around her neck and the once vibrant blue pendant was now a listless green rock tucked in her bust. The sultry smile Mei usually wore replaced with a worried frown. What happened, Naruto? Placing a hand on the cheek of his demoness, Naruto began. Kushina summoned a god. You fought a god, which one? It was not a fight so much as it was a simple game. He crippled myself and Kyomi within moments of engaging. As for who, it was the broken. Mei took a sharp breath, knowing the story of how demons came and why many driven into madness. Then what will you do, Naruto, with Konoha being able to draw him into this world at will? Frowning briefly, he looked at his, remembering the feeling of all his strength taken, leaving him kneeling at the feet of the god. I will find a way. I have thousands upon thousands of years worth of knowledge taken from people and demons. If there is a way, it will come to me eventually. Mei huffed at his inadvertent flaunting of how intelligent he was. Well, Konoha survived, so we can assume that this attempt was a failure? Naruto chuckled. Perhaps in destroying Konoha I failed, but it will be right there when I am ready. Saving my little sister though was a success that outweighs my defeat. Pushing himself to stand, Naruto shouldered his beloved half. Well, I suppose we will travel to Iwa. Kyomi and I could use a soft bed to rest in until we recover the strength we have left. With one hand around the demoness waist, he reached for the others. Take hands, I will shunshin us to the gates. Each person linked hands with Mei holding Naruto. Closing his eyes, Naruto focused his Yukai and their bodies blurred before vanishing towards their destination. Phasing into sight before the mighty gates of Iwa, Naruto pushed Kyomi into Mei's arms and collapsed into spasms on the ground. The Hokage arrived to find the country's savior shaking on the ground. Snapping out of the mind-baffling hypnotic sight, he barked quick orders. You two grab Naruto and bring him to their home. Turning sharply, Inoki beckoned for his guard. Bring me 4 of the ninjas slated for execution. The ninja nodded and vanished with their own shunshin. Fu's breathing was slowing, her heartbeat pumped less, and finally her blood stopped. Naruto released her head and continued removing all the chakra with haste. He had a small window to complete the transfer. Minutes passed and sweat dripped from Naruto's forehead. He had never taken this much power at once, and it was taxing to stay concentrated with the once silent urge in his mind now so vocal. Pulling his hand away, the last wisps of green Yukai jumped the gap. Already Fu's chakra-less corpse was beginning to cool and he needed to act quickly. Placing his lips to the former Jinchurikis, he released an equal amount of chakra back into her body, and it once again took its place in her navel, and the chakra system branched out, searing new paths through her body. Lightning coursed in his hands and Fu's body arched at an painful angle and her heart pumped once more. Once complete, he cradled her head and focused on only the entirety of Fu within his mind. Hoping he managed to correctly separate her from himself, he forced the memories to reactivate within the synapse. Each neuron fired with precision, reorganizing the influx of knowledge back into order. To visualize the process, think of her brain as RAM and the power was cut. Naruto is the hard disk and he just loaded the RAM back up with everything that was lost. Hopefully that makes it a little clearer on how I am trying to explain it. Message me if you need further clarification. Naruto sat back, taking large breaths, watching and waiting for his experimental gamble to hopefully pay off. Fu's eyes opened in alarm, her mouth taking in gulps of air, her body begging for oxygen to replace the stale carbon dioxide that had settled in her blood. It was not to last long. Soon Fu's eyes spun her head and the breaths became irregular and her body went into seizures with her brain not having sufficient oxygen. Kyomi, get over here quickly, I need your help. Instantly the demoness was at his side and the purple chakra exploded in his haste. Placing his mouth again over the resurrected girls, he filled her lungs with the healing Yukai and oxygen. Yukai followed the circulatory system and her skin took a glowing royal purple hue wherever the blood went. The seizures stopped with the influx of oxygen and the Yukai corrected any of the damage caused by cerebral hypoxia. Sitting back, Naruto knew she would live. Both demons quickly cleansed themselves of any errant dirt or debris. Looking over, he saw the enormous circle of grass and other vegetation from his uncontrolled burst. Rei lay next to Mei, her eyes tear-stained, and Naruto felt bad for pushing her away. He just didn't know how to deal with it. Turning to his love, he helped her up and into a searing kiss. "Thank you for taking Rei." Kyomi held him, hearing his heart beat. She smiled. "It's okay, but you will have to face it eventually. She is the most emotionally dependent upon you, it seems." He was grimacing at the thought of having to learn to emotionally comfort someone. "I suppose I will learn." Letting go of the warm woman, he placed his palm to the ground and he spun a small orb of his own Yukai. Letting it sit, he pushed all that was the Nanabi into the ball with little effort, since he did not need to perfectly match a brain pattern. The sphere morphed and a beetle once again took shape. The Baijiu looked surprised as it was conscious once again. This is impossible." Naruto smirked. "I told you I can do things demons could never dream of." Shaking its carapace and wings, Nanabi took flight and landed on Fu's chest. Feeling her heartbeat and chakra flowing, the Baijiu hummed happily. "So it would seem. I do have to ask, what is your purpose for resurrecting me? I will need help when the time comes, and yours would be an advantage. You kept your word concerning Fu, so I am indebted. Ask and I will do what I can to help." "Excellent. Until then, stay safe, Chomai." Naruto smiled, leaving to pick up Mei. Kyomi followed suit, held Rei. Naruto and Kyomi activated Shunshin. Their forms became transparent and they vanished. Chomai transformed into a young man with deep green hair. Smirking, he whispered, "You are a strange demon, Naruto, truly greater than both human and demon." Picking up Fu, he flew off to her forest home so she could rest. "Mine." His eyes widened, the softened pupils sharpened into their elliptical shape, and his crimson iris bled, filling the sclera. He pushed off the tree, tucking his wings, and then nose-dived. In slow motion, Fu's arm began cutting her skin, next glided through her muscle and was not even stopped by the collarbone. Just as it cleared, the bone was ripped out as Naruto impacted Fu's chest, sending them both tumbling across the earth. With the comma-like object no longer blocking the arteries, blood jettisoned from Mei in a grotesque fountain. Kyomi raced to Mei's side, her Yukai already flowing into the woman, holding the arteries closed. Even in the few unattended seconds, Mei lost much blood, covering the ground and tree root in this prey. Without Naruto's Yukai, hers alone could not heal, but she could stave it off until Naruto joins her. After they settled on the ground, Naruto jumped onto Fu's chest and began raining blows into the iron-like helmet covering her face. Fu could put up little fight as her head wrung and body twitched in spasm with each strike. The Yukai could not hold up any longer and his hardened fists met flesh, sending the mint-haired girl's head sideways with a sickening crack. Flipping them over, he positioned himself on her lower back and took hold of the girl's head in the crook of his arm. He wanted her to suffer. He began applying pressure, pulling her spine into a painful arch, and Fu began grasping at his arm, trying to stop the pain. Her eyes clouded over and her neck, feeling the shattering strength, ready to pull her head off. Once tanned skin was now a sickly purple as blood could not travel past the arms. Fu gasped for air that never came. "Naruto." Kyomi received no response from her call, and he only continued trying to separate their target's head from her body. Flooding her mental powers with Yukai, she yelled, "Naruto!" Finally, like a switch, his head snapped to her, his eyes returning to normal, and he quickly released the no longer responsive Jinchuriki. Staring at the limp girl, he scrambled up and ran to his love and knelt next to Mei as her body convulsed from pain and lack of blood. Together once again, their Yukai swirled into the brilliant purple. Bone came out like scaffolding, filling the gap, muscle strung itself back into form, and skin stitched together. The wound closed up and the convulsing stopped. Mei now only looked like a pale ghost sitting in her blood-covered clothes. With Mei no longer in danger, Naruto finally took notice of Rei standing off to the side, tears brimming in her eyes. The Namikaze immediately rushed into his arms, apologizing profusely. "I'm sorry, Naruto, it was my fault. I took too long to finish my seal," and Mei almost died. The rest of her words were garbled by sobs and deep breaths. Never once had Naruto ever been in the position of having a woman crying in his arms, so instinct took over and it was to quickly pass his sister into the bloodied arms of his lover while walking away. Ray, thinking he was angry that she had got his friend injured, only cried harder now in Kyomi's arms. Naruto drowned out the cries and focused on the job at hand. Reaching the unconscious Jinchuriki, he rolled her over and pushed her torn shirt away from the seal on her stomach, watching it pulse as the Nanabi was most likely trying to escape. With the practice of 1,000 skilled hands, Naruto manipulated the seal, easily redirecting the yokai from releasing into the host but outward in a specific point. Slowly the paths into Fu closed and all of the chakra was beginning to flow from the new inked path. Before long, Naruto reset the seal and the yokai that did escape bulged and shifted until a beetle much larger than anything that has existed was formed. The Nanabi's wings took to motion and he was hovering before Naruto. Its mandibles clacked and words came from the impossible source. "So I come to meet my host's tormentor and I assume my executioner." Naruto was surprised by the articulate Baijiu. "Yeah, that would be me." "Then make Fu's death quick, I do not wish her to suffer." "You mistake my intentions, I have promised to not kill her and I will stay true my word." The beetle made an agitated sound. "To remove my yokai from the host would prove fatal, my chakra has become intertwined with her. I can keep her alive, it's more difficult than simply killing her, but the decision has already been made for me." "You take me for a fool then. It is impossible to separate us at this point, the line between us has become blurred." The Baijiu was unamused by Naruto's claims. Getting the strong feeling to simply absorb the Baijiu and stop its talking. "I am everything a demon and human could never be, I am both. I can things they only dream of." Clicking the kindness mouthpieces, Nanabi had enough. "Do what you must, we are at your mercy regardless, I only hope your claims have merit." The yokai dissipated and flowed back into its host. Naruto placed one's hand upon Fu's forehead and one on her seal. The hand upon her forehead began to glow and everything that was Fu melted into Naruto's mind, everything she was and is. The hand upon her seal fought to absorb her chakra and the yokai but was only slowed for a moment. Fu now stood in full form, her human body barely visible beneath the coalesced chakra one. Her face covered in an iron-like helmet, the beetle horn now joined by two smaller ones from the side of her head. Glimpses of her face could be seen beneath the helmet when the yokai would flicker and become transparent for a split second. Throwing her head back, she let out a screech that shook the tree, tossing leaves into the wind, and her charge began anew. The transformed girl vanished and appeared with her horn clashing against the reinforced wings of Naruto. The eerie glow beneath the helmet intensified and she lunged forward, sending Naruto through the foliage. Shaking her head, Fu targeted Kyomi, stomping large dents into the branch as she raced across the wooden battlegrounds. Kyomi, for the first time since her feral days, sprouted the 9 tails she was known for. As Fu closed in, Kyomi fanned the tails, obscuring her body, and just as Fu touched them they parted to show Kyomi had twirled to one side while leaving the impression she had never moved at all. The Jinchuriki barreled past and off the thick branch, and the former Kyuubi quickly met with the other girls. "Kyomi, do you have any way of stopping her?" Mei asked. The demoness shook her head, indicating a negative. "I don't have the physical abilities to stop her. Naruto was the brute force between us. I use finesse and misdirection." Ray piped in. "What about your tails? Could you not tumble mountains and reshape the world with mere swings of them?" "I cannot. Since my rebirth most of my physical strength is within Naruto, just as he is not as careful in his actions because I possess most of that trait between us. We are still technically one being separated." All three saw the Jinchuriki fly up, beginning her search for them. "Well, we better come up with a plan until Naruto gets back," Mei warned. "I got a plan." Kyomi, distract her for a minute, may keep her on the move with some lava. Nodding, the girls took off and began the assault. Kyomi jumped, meeting the beetle girl mid-air, and she began some fast-paced strikes, leaving palm-sized holes in the yokai as she pushed hers through cloak. Kyomi's strikes did little to harm the girl, but it served to focus her ire. Just as Fu moved to strike the demoness, she felt more lava splashing across her back and running over her body. Giving an annoyed grunt, she swatted Kyomi away with the blunt sides of her scythes and made a break for Mei. Kyomi flew bouncing off branches until her body came to rest on the slight ramp created from the tree's roots meeting earth. Struggling briefly she slackened and rested, letting her yokai heal her shattered bones from the Jinchuriki's seemingly minor blow and the subsequent fall. Mei backpedaled, continuing to spew lava to slow the transformed lady. Finally reaching a thicker offshoot of wood, Mei knelt behind it, hoping she garnered Rei enough time to do whatever it was she wanted. Slice. The branch was bisected just above Mei's head as the razor-sharp scythes cleaved through it easily. Rolling away she let loose a torrent of lava. Reaching her hand into the molten rock she grabbed it like a blanket and threw it over herself and hardened it, forming a dome. Fu stabbed her kama-like claw into the rock and chipped a few pieces away, but those few turned into many and her flurry of strikes punctured the earthen shell. Mei held her hands against the rock, reinforcing the stone and fixing the holes. Finally fed up with the barrier, Fu head-butted the dome with all the strength she had and the whole thing shattered, sending Mei through the tree, tumbling to the earth, bouncing off all the obstacles. Rei finally made her appearance with her hand glowing with the writing for explosion. Dashing to the girl she slammed her hand into the woman's chest, burning the seal into Fu. Jumping back she braced herself for the blast, and she was not disappointed. The seal made a low shockwave, then a whoosh of air as it all drew back into the seal and the Jinchuriki's body was consumed in the deafening explosion. With the girl indisposed, Rei went looking for her group and found Kyomi failing to help the lava user up. As the fire subsided, Fu could be seen with burns across her body but healing, with the yokai reforming around her body. Seeing the enemy on the ground she jumped off the tree and free fell to the earth. Rei packed Mei over, sitting the unconscious woman against one of the tree's many roots, and Kyomi joined her, breathing shallow and labored. The Namakes looked at the two, feeling bad for not being able to finish creating the seal faster, and her new friends were injured because of it. As the conscious women took a breather, they heard a whistling echoing all around. Glancing at the surroundings, they couldn't pinpoint its location until a boom was heard and the earth a few meters away rose up like a wave in all directions, tearing the soft ground asunder. Shielding their eyes, they peered through fingers to see the mostly unharmed Fu standing and making a slow walk towards them. It seemed now that Fu had victory. She wanted to make them feel suffering because she never used the sharpened edges of her appendages, rather she swatted the girls around easily with the blunt sides or back of them. Knocking both Kyomi and Rei away, Fu focused on the lava woman. Naruto shook his head and pulled himself from the indentation he made in the trunk. Holding his head, he listened for the battle going on and heard the shrill screaming. Moving, he saw Fu raise her razor-edged arm ready to slice right through Mei.